Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. Let's talk about the new moon in Cancer. I'm a little bit late in presenting this, but life circumstances are such at times that we just need to do what we need to do, right? So I apologize that it's a little bit late, but in any case, it is a new moon, right? And so a new moon, of course, represents a journey that we'll be going through over the next 4 weeks, right? So the point is that you've got some understanding of when the new moon takes place, which is the 28th and the 29th of June. And hopefully you're aware of that, which most of you, of course, would be. And you can actually just work with setting your own personal intentions, because that's one of the primary things that we really need to be doing with the new moon. It's about setting our own intentions. Cancer. Okay, so there's so much going on with Cancer at the moment. This new moon, of course, is really the complete activation point of the feminine archetypes, the feminine goddesses that are all lining up at the moment. And there's quite a few of them, all in Cancer and Capricorn as well. Of course, Pluto is involved, Eris is involved, Chiron is involved. There's a Mars square Pluto at the moment. Oh, there's an interesting little glitch there that kind of, I wonder if you guys saw that. Anyway, so, first of all, we had the summer and winter solstice on the 21st of June. So that's a brand new journey and cycle that we've all stepped into, depending on whether we're in the northern or southern hemisphere. In any case, it's a new beginning. It's a new cycle of the solar journey through the archetype of Cancer, which I have spoken about in a previous video, so I won't go into that again. But nevertheless, this new moon occurs, a week or so after the solstice, and it's all kind of lining up. So the solstice represents the sun in Cancer, and then we have this new moon in Cancer. So Cancer is an archetype that is extremely highlighted at the moment. And there are some, very important matters going on in the world, and I know most of you would be aware. I also understand that everybody has a different perspective, a different belief, and a different position. And I don't want to use this platform to create a debate about our moral or ethical perspective on a particular issue that's really ignited at the moment. I welcome conversation, of course, but it is about respecting that everyone has a different perspective. And so I won't focus on that too much, but I do want to bring it in because it is a really important matter. And I guess the way that I would like to approach it is from a bigger picture perspective, which would include understanding things like what we call the patriarchal system, which essentially is what we see in this 3D reality and have for thousands of years, actually. And coming up to the US Pluto return that's occurring this year, which was activated, I think, in February of this year. It has another hit in July, so coming up soon, which I think is really interesting that this particular issue, Wade versus Roe is what I'm referring to, has been activated at this time. And then there's going to be a final hit of the Pluto return for USA at the end of 2022, so in December. But certainly the energy of that's going to be felt long after December of 2022. So there's a lot going on here, and this new moon does kind of pull in all these different energies that are speaking to these universal collective sort of themes that are going on. Whilst this is a matter, quite a serious matter in the USA, USA tends to sort of set off a ripple effect of trends or decisions or things that are made, and somehow they just get trickled into other places on Earth, right? So it is an important issue, and again, it's not about what one believes about that, but it is about perhaps recognizing that the whole matter of sovereignty and freedom and autonomy has always been snuffed out. And it's been snuffed out basically since the patriarchal system kicked in, okay, thousands of years ago. And, you know, we've had different waves and different sort of revolutions that have come through, different systems that have been shut down that then have been reborn again. There's a lot that's happened in thousands of years. Obviously, I can't cover that here in this video. The point is to just recognize that we are, from the 3D reality perspective, and by the way, on that point, we don't always have to be all consumed, you know, and all focused in the 3D paradigm, because for those of us that practice astrology, ascension, you know, spirituality, trying to understand our own soul and those sorts of journeys, a lot of us in that kind of life path, if you like, seem to have a better ability at detaching. Not always, but a lot of us do. And I think detaching and being objective is a really powerful practice, you know, that we need to either cultivate or continuously cultivate, actually, because there's just far too much chaos and drama going on in 3D reality, which, you know, it pulls our heartstrings. It activates certain perceptions or ideals or beliefs that we have. Be it right or wrong is not the issue. What's going on here with these lines coming through? There's some energy that's trying to come through somehow. Interesting. So the interesting thing was that there's a particular astrologer who I call him the god of the asteroids, because he really is. His name is Alex. I've just forgotten his surname, but I did post his article in the community section. That guy is just unbelievable, actually, but he nails it every time, and he just shows us the power of the asteroids. Now, what I'm referring to there is that he's written an article about the chart for the moment of when the decision was made relative to the matter of, there it is, Roe versus Wade. So this is the chart, this is the approximate time. And I'm not going to unpack this chart right now. It's just going to take us away from the focus of the new moon, but it is important to kind of bring in, just to demonstrate the power of asteroids once again. The power of asteroids is just undeniable. So, and when we look at the new moon chart in a moment, you'll see that as well. There's a you know, a really powerful lineup of the feminine divine goddesses who've got a really important message and powerful presence in the ether at the moment, right, in the collective unconscious. So in this chart, there's just a couple of things I wanted to share. There's an asteroid, believe it or not, called Wade, which is actually conjunct the sun in Cancer of this chart, okay? And there's also an asteroid called Child, okay, which happens to be conjunct the sun in this chart as well. And so, I mean, you literally cannot get more literal than that, right, in terms of what's being activated. The matter of birth, children, cancer, mother, the matter of rights of women, whether you agree with the decision or not is kind of irrelevant, right? First of all, I think you need to be a woman to kind of have more of a say. Sorry, no offense, and I don't mean to sound sexist or anything like that, but we are talking about a woman's issue, and we are talking about a woman's body and the rights that she naturally should have over that. And natural is a good word to bring in, because what's actually happening here is that natural law, which was essentially abolished, diminished, hidden, taken out of the collective 3D reality thousands of years ago and replaced with the patriarchal systems, which has been an incredible domination over the feminine principle. That's a fact. It's not about being sexist, or it's not about the fact that I'm a woman. That is evident all around us and has been for a very long time. And, you know, Okay, so just to finish up on this chart here, so there's a lot of things going on here. There's Saturn on the descendant, okay, which is, you know, pretty apt for having decision having been made, you know, relative to law. Saturn on the descendant is, you know, the debate or the argument, you know, it's an open forum where there will be debate or conflict, whatever it may be. In this case, we've got Saturn there. And Saturn, of course, is the lord of time, but is the lord of repression and oppression as well. That's just how it is. And so there's a lot of things here. You know, we've got Hygeia in Scorpio in the third, okay? And so Scorpio, Hygeia, first of all, is goddess of health, well-being, health, hygiene, you know, those sorts of things. She's in the third house. The matter that's been transmitted is about health. It's a pretty, it's the Scorpio element, I think, speaks to the fact that it's an issue that brings up a lot of the unconscious, darker, shadow, fear-based components in people's psyche, you know, with certain matters, right? Specifically this matter, Roe versus Wade. So there's the transmission of the matter of health seen through the Scorpio lens. And then, of course, Venus rules the midheaven of this chart, all right? So, and Venus is in Gemini in the 10th house, okay? And she's in Gemini, so one very quick thing about that relative to this chart and this issue is that there's a real division, there's a split between how people feel about it, okay? And that's evident all around, right? And that's what Gemini does, it divides, right? It splits things up, okay? Because it's my own personal opinion. Someone's personal opinion doesn't mean it's correct. It just means that that's their personal opinion, right? So Venus is in the 10th house. You know, she rules the midheaven. The matter that we're talking about is a feminine Venus matter. People are divided. Gemini, Venus rules the midheaven. Taurus is a physical body. I mean, we can go on. There's lots of different things that really describe the moment of this particular decision. But as I said, I don't really want to focus too much on that. The main thing that blew me away was the fact that there's an asteroid called Wade and an asteroid called Child right on the Cancerian sun at 3 degrees, right when this decision was made. So that in itself is just, you know, literally mind-blowing. So let's just move away from that and go to this is a new moon chart, and I want to just highlight a few matters here. So there's the new moon. Sun-moon conjunction is a new moon, okay? It happens once a month, every month. In this case, it's not a solar eclipse, it's a standard new moon. New moons are very, very powerful. They are powerful when they are a solar eclipse, absolutely, possibly even more powerful, but a new moon every month is still extremely powerful. The fact that it's in Cancer and it's activating Ceres, the goddess Ceres, which is about loss, grief. It's also about renewal and transformation, but it certainly brings up a matter of loss and deep grief and pain, right? And so it is interesting that she's in Cancer at the moment. And of course, there's Black Moon Lilith, which is conjunct this new moon. And this is really very literal, right? In terms of this issue that's going on at the moment, that's, you know, activating a wave of energy through the collective, right? Again, it's not about right or wrong or your personal opinion. It's a hard one to kind of, you know, unpack, because I know it's going to trigger buttons, and I can't control what other people feel, so I'll only speak about what I can relative to my own understanding. But Black Moon Lilith, and this is a true position of Lilith, okay? There's a Lilith that's used in a lot of software that's basically programmed to use the mean position, which is just the average position. And if you use the average position, Lilith is actually not in Cancer, okay? So it's really important to understand that you're working with true Lilith. I think that's the point that we should be working with. Again, like I've mentioned before, why would you use a mean position when you can actually use the true position? Because we can work it out, the computer calculates it for us, right? It's not an accident or coincidence that the goddess Lilith is actually conjunct this Cancerian new moon. And there's so many different levels to this, and I really talk about all this for hours and hours and hours, but I won't. But just some things to consider relative to this collective issue that's being activated and triggered in the collective unconscious at the moment, which also, by the way, is the new moon is actually square Chiron, and yes, it is square Jupiter as well. The square to Jupiter is, I wouldn't consider a sun square Jupiter necessarily difficult, or a moon square Jupiter difficult for that matter. But I guess some of the issues that would come up out of that, particularly in Aries, is that really direct, opinionated perspective, self-righteousness, arrogance. This is all Jupiter, right, in Aries, when it's behaving in a way where it's perhaps imbalanced, just unable to be aware of other people's perspectives, and not being able to respect other people's perspectives, and just sort of standing in your own sense of what you feel is right, kind of thing, right? So it can be that sort of arrogance. That's kind of like worst case scenario, if you like, of this square, which, that can be a problem, because that can create unnecessary conflict and things like that, which, unnecessary conflict is just not pleasant at all for anyone. But sometimes there's healthy conflict, and that's necessary, because that actually gets us motivated and activated to act on something that perhaps we've been stagnant on. Which reminds me, Mars square Pluto, which is approaching, as you can see, it's approaching there. So it's been active, really from the last couple of days. It's going to be active for a couple more days. This is an incredibly difficult energy, okay? From that personality lower level, it can spark off, pretty big conflict, that can be dangerous as well. We're talking Mars, Pluto, both planets to do with willpower, power struggles, power issues, domination, control, my way, things like that. So it can be very problematic when it's activated, perhaps in conditions and an environment or a situation between two people where there's anger, that comes up, whether that's suppressed anger, whether that's, projected anger, whatever it may be. But again, sometimes the anger is the very thing that some people need in order to get the energy moving in a particular direction with something that they've been afraid of, stagnant in, not able to stand up for yourself and things like that. So there's always a flip side to every coin, right? So, but anyway, again, this, the fact that this applying square to Pluto from Mars is present in this new moon chart, I think it's really speaking to the tremendous anger and outrage that's being triggered and activated in a lot of women at the moment, and I can completely understand. Because I don't think anyone has a right to tell you what you should be doing with your body. That's my position anyway. Lilith, who was the first wife of Adam, and there's a few different Liliths, and I have done several videos on this. So if you want more information on that and a more extensive presentation, then I would encourage you to just search those videos on my channel. You'll find them there. I talk about 4 different Liliths actually. But the point here is that this is the true black moon Lilith conjunct the new moon, which, new moon in Cancer, we're talking about Mother Earth herself. So it starts there. We're talking about Gaia, about Mother, about the divine feminine. We're talking about emotional body. We're talking about very deep emotions. And notice I'm not using the word feelings, because there is a distinction between feelings and emotions. And just to put it very simply, without going into the complexities from a psychological perspective, emotions tend to trigger and activate our beingness, okay? So an emotion is something, for example, when you get angry, that's an emotion. When you get upset, that's an emotion. When you're experiencing a sense of bliss and joy, that's a feeling. So you can see right there, they're 2 very different levels and expressions of what often gets used simultaneously to describe the same thing, and they're not the same thing at all. I'm pointing that out because the moon in Cancer is a very, very, very sensitive moon, and the emotions are very raw, subjective, and extremely animated and activated. for better or for worse. That's what Cancer does when Cancer, I mean, Cancer rules, the moon rules Cancer, right? So there's this understanding that, you know, rulership means that a planet is dignified and therefore you get the best out of it. But in my experience, through my observations over the years that I've been looking at astrology, when I see a moon in Cancer, whilst yes, it's got dignity because it's in rulership, I don't see it as a moon in terms of what I've observed through various people. It's a moon that's incredibly volatile, actually, very vulnerable, and can feel threatened quite easily. A lot of insecurities can come up. It's a highly volatile, sensitive moon. So even though it's in rulership and it's dignified on those levels, the moon in Cancer is an incredibly emotional, sensitive body of energy. Think about it, it's the first water sign in the wheel of the zodiac relative to the 3 water signs. And the moon, of course, is a water body. It corresponds to the emotional body within. When you think about our physical body, which is made up of 80% of water, so the moon corresponds to the inner rhythms, it corresponds to women's cycles, etc. It corresponds to the ocean and the tides and the waves and all these things that happen on Earth. There's so much that the moon connects with. When you put it in a water sign, all those things are completely amplified. And from a psychological archetypal level, moon in Cancer is extremely sensitive and reactive. That's just a fact. So we've got a powerful lunation cycle kicking off, 29th of June or 28th of June, if you are in the Northern Hemisphere, that's going to bring in the matters of Lilith, which, as I was saying before, Lilith is the first wife of Adam. There's a few different Liliths. And one thing I want to say as well is that you've got Black Moon Lilith conjunct the Sun. And relative to the other goddesses that are present in the archetypes of Cancer at the moment are, where did I have it? So you've got Black Moon Lilith conjunct the Sun at 8 degrees. You've got Ceres at 19 degrees. The goddess Persephone, which there's no symbol for her, so I couldn't put her in there, but if you can imagine, she is at 14 degrees. So she's basically sitting right here. So Persephone is in connection to this new moon and to Black Moon Lilith. And Asteroid Lilith. So the Asteroid Lilith is an actual asteroid that was named Lilith back, I think, in the 1920s sometime, whereas this Black Moon Lilith is not an actual physical body. It's a mathematical calculation which corresponds to the moon and the earth, okay, and a black void in between, right, just to put it very simply. So the Black Moon Lilith really corresponds to the essence of the archetype of Lilith and what she ultimately really represented and stood up for, which was autonomy, fairness, equality, freedom. Autonomy, fairness, equality, freedom. So when she was paired up with Adam, just long story short, Adam wanted to be the dominating one, which is that whole masculine patriarchal system that's ingrained, implanted in people's psyche from thousands of years ago, and it's always been that way. And so we've got this model of man plays a very specific role, and he's the dominant one in XYZ, and then we have this model of marriage, and just that consensus reality Saturn model of what the roles of man and women are, right? And so when Lilith basically said to Adam that what she would prefer is that they have an equal partnership, and he wasn't having it, essentially she just said, see you later, goodbye. If you don't want to be my equal partner, because he wanted her to be subservient, right? That's basically what happened. So she took off, and as a result of her taking off, she was shamed and demonized and created into this figure where through art and culture and religion and whatnot, she's been portrayed as this demonic feminine, right? which is a complete misconception of the archetypal, true, essential expression of Lilith, right? She's just the feminine counterpart that initially was living according to natural law, the beautiful, wild, free feminine, which for thousands of years has been suppressed. And when it does get expressed by certain women or women, individuals, they are demonized, shut down, judged, made to feel shamed of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This has been going on for a very long time. It's not a revelation. But the point is that this matter of Roe versus Wade is really activating the essential frequency of Mother Earth at the moment. There's a sense of rage, going on. Lilith is that component in our psyche, that archetypal component that is buried very, very, very deeply and has been suppressed for such a long time. So she will be activated and triggered both in the psyche of men and women, for that matter, in different ways. And depending on how conscious and awake and aware a person is will depend on how they respond to the call of Lilith, whether it will be an experience of just projecting the dark, demonic, feminine archetype onto women out there and demonizing them, or whether it will be an experience of understanding that the wild, free feminine is a natural part of the divine feminine. Natural. She corresponds to natural law. Man-made law, which is what we're talking about when we're talking about Roe versus Wade or Wade versus Roe, whichever way it goes, that is a man-made law. That's got nothing to do with natural law. That's the first thing that we need to really understand here. It's not about our personal belief and opinion that will primarily come through religious indoctrinations. That's where it stems from, essentially. I know this is going to be triggering a few people, but so be it, So we're looking at a cycle of the moon really amplifying these matters to the absolute hilt. The other things, as I said, Persephone is here as well in Cancer, and the goddess Isis is actually sitting about here at 25 Cancer. So she's actually opposite Pluto. She's approaching in opposition to Pluto. Now, goddess Isis is, the beautiful Egyptian goddess that represents mother, again, Gaia, earth, mother, divine feminine. She's in Cancer at this time as well. Opposite Pluto, square Eris. Look at Eris, right? That's Eris, the goddess of discord, chaos, destruction, but ultimately the goddess that wants to represent matters that have to do with fairness and equality and justice and for people to be heard. So, we've got a Mars conjunct Eris creating this, explosive anger, Mars in Aries, squaring Pluto, and then goddess Isis opposite Pluto, and all these other asteroid goddesses conjunct the new moon in Cancer, an archetype that corresponds to mother, birth, children, family, etc. So it couldn't be more literal, actually, this particular cycle. The thing is, though, that a lot of these dynamics that I've pointed to, they are there, present in this chart, so present for the new moon. What is happening with this? There must be some frequencies trying to come through. Let's let them come through. Okay, it was good just to take a breath, actually. But as we proceed forward, what we are going to see is an unfoldment of what this new moon being conjunct all these feminine archetypes, feminine goddesses that are, these goddesses are really pretty strong archetypes, especially Lilith. You don't want to mess with Lilith. Like, she can be she can be a pretty intense archetype and goddess, and of course Eris as well, which is actually square goddess Isis at the moment as well. So there's a T-square between Pluto, Isis, and Ceres and Mars, Eris and Mars rather. And of course we've got Chiron square the new moon too. So there's a deep collective pain that people are feeling from this issue that's been triggered in different ways for different people. In different ways for different people. And, you know, look, we can go into many layers of this. And I think we have to be careful about being sort of dogmatic and one-sided and arrogant and self-righteous, you know, because there is going to be a lot of different opinion. But fundamentally, without communicating my personal sort of belief or opinion, I'm just trying to point to the archetypes and remaining, you know, objective. But I do stand very strongly when it comes to recognizing that natural law needs to be the way we move through life moving forward. That's not going to happen tomorrow, but I think when Pluto ingresses into Aquarius, we're going to start seeing some of these new shifts, collective shifts, new revolutions come through that would be more in alignment with perhaps natural law and you know, humanitarian issues coming to the forefront and being completely transformed, so that there is more of a collective unison, Aquarius, collective unison, right? And matters of fairness, justice, and equality really coming to the forefront like they've never come before. Now, this Pluto finishing his journey in Capricorn and being squared by Eris and USA having the Pluto return, it's no wonder that, you know, we've had 2.5 years of freedom, sovereignty, people's rights, you know, be ripped away from them relative to a particular paradigm and storyline that's been playing out. Now, again, wherever you are on that, you are. I'm not here to debate that with you. I respect people's perspectives and positions, but I can't not sort of state what appears very, very obvious to me, which is that there's been a particular storyline that's been played out in the third dimension reality, which highly corresponds to a patriarchal system around the matters of domination and control and money, greed. Okay, so anyway, when Pluto, my point about that was that Pluto's right at the end of this, you know, Pluto in Capricorn journey, which started in 2008, and it's kind of like the Capricorn component of it, which connects to Saturn, of course, which connects to the Constitution, the establishment, the systems, which are dominated through a patriarchal lens, are trying to desperately hold on to a paradigm that's been in play for thousands of years. And because there's been such a mass awakening on so many levels, people have started waking up and sort of asking questions, being more, you know, sort of inquiring into what's really real and what's really true here. Because the level of distortion and deliberate deception and propaganda that has been exposed through media, particularly over the last couple of years, has been absolutely shattering to the reality of what people thought that reality was all about. But that shattering is what needed to come through to create the crisis, to hopefully create the waking up, right? So, you know, everything's happening accordingly as it should. As much as, you know, this matter is creating division, conflict, rage, you know, whatever it may be, Lilith is there. It's going to create all of that. Eris is in the picture, Mars is there, Pluto's in the picture, Persephone is in the picture, the asteroid, Lilith is in the picture. You can't deny these energies, you can't avoid them, but fundamentally this is about the divine feminine and natural law being heard, not being suppressed as it has been for a very long time. So moving away from that, and let's bring the focus into some lighter notes, which would be more reflective of perhaps your own personal journey relative to the moon in Cancer for the next 4 weeks. Well, first of all, where is this new moon in your birth chart? Which house is it in? That's obviously going to show you the field of the field and area of life where this new moon begins, what's going to unfold over the next 4 weeks. Some of the matters at a more, sort of lighter note, if you like, would be matters of obviously family, our home life, and even sort of more significantly from the point of view of our own self-care, our own awakening, our own clearing, healing, and self-empowerment. The Cancer energy takes us right into the guts of the emotional body and working through various emotional issues. Could be family matters, it could be relationship matters, but again, it always comes back to being aware of our own inner emotional guidance system and how connected we are to that, how intuitive we are. Are we reacting in a what might appear as a irrational way, towards something? Emotions are not rational. They're always going to be irrational. So, of course, when you are activated and triggered emotionally, it's always going to be seen as irrational because it is irrational. It doesn't belong in the rational field. Sometimes that's the very thing that needs to be expressed. But I guess we also need to, keep sort of track of our own emotional responses and reactions to, conditions, situations, and so forth. But fundamentally, this is a time to tap into those deeper feelings, darker feelings, Lilith, our own darker emotional content that needs a cleanup, that needs a healing session, that needs a voice, that needs a space, those kinds of things. And honoring what we feel, honoring our emotions, but being responsible about them as well, and not just projecting shit onto anything and anyone, right? Taking accountability and responsibility for our own emotional body, our emotional life, our emotional understanding and awareness. Cancer energy takes us into that field. It shows us. How does it show us? It shows us by activating that emotional response inside us through events, situations, and conditions that we are exposed to, subjected to, etc., whether that's professionally or personally. We are in the feeling zone. We are in the Cancer archetype, mother, care, nurture, taking care of. That, absolutely must be about taking care of our own emotional body and needs. Moon is what we need, what feeds us, what nurtures us. And Cancer is very much that as well, but on that emotional level. So those are the core kind of points that I wanted to share with you guys today. It is a really intense lunar month, lunar cycle with this particular new moon, and it's evident all around us. So I would just say, take care of yourself, take care of your heart, take care of your emotions on every single spectrum that involves. Also bring in some objectivity as well. Aquarius is a sign of objectivity. Cancer is extremely subjective. It's the most subjective sign, really. So we need to remember that from the context of, if something really activates us and triggers us very deeply, and there's some deep anger and things like that come up, which is, likely to be the case given we've got Asteroid Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, Ceres, Isis, all in Cancer, Persephone. There's going to be components of our own inner feminine components, feminine psychic structures that need to be heard, understood, need a space, need to feel supported and nurtured, as opposed to being shamed, judged, pushed back, shut down. And, one of the issues that's been going on for infinity is a woman's emotionality is often seen as irrational, and particularly when there's a hormonal situation going on with women's cycles, etc. I mean, look, I'll put it to you like this. There's a book called the DSM, all right, which is a diagnostic manual, right, for psychiatry, okay? When I was working in the field of psychology, I had to get that book because of my studies, my work, etc. In that book exists a condition that's described as a psychiatric disorder, which corresponds to a woman's menstrual cycle. Now, if that doesn't raise alarm bells in your head, I don't know what will. And just to add to that, the experience of grief, we all go through grief in life in multiple ways, sometimes in the biggest ways that shape and change and changes forever, actually. But anyway, the point is that the experience of grief is also in this diagnostic manual as a psychiatric disorder. And I'm not lying and I'm not exaggerating, it's there. So what does that tell you? It tells us that the emotional body, that the experience of the feminine in all her facets that she expresses herself is not allowed. It gets judged, shamed, labeled in a psychiatric manner, like there's something wrong with you when you have those feelings. That's the kind of patriarchal system we live in. I'll leave it there. So, yeah, use this energy to bring in the softness, the nurturance of love for your own heart, for your home, your family. Be aware of what's going on inside you. This is a real opportunity to really get to the roots inside you, the deep, deep, deep roots. Beautiful cleansing time. Much love and see you all soon. I'll be back to talk about Neptune retrograde. I said I was going to talk about it in this particular presentation, but I'll be here way too long and I have to go. So I'll be back to talk about that soon. Okay, much love. Bye.